This week on the Orange Box Podcast, we give our predictions for the upcoming Nintendo Direct. Monster Hunter Wilds finally is being optimized. We talk about some possible games coming to NSO and what that might mean, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 122. I am your host, the man who is studying to be fluent in Groundhogese, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the seer of seers, the prognosticator of prognosticators, the man who saw his shadow, Justin, better known as I Am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Oh, man, if it wasn't for the fact that it totally slipped my mind what yesterday was far too late, I would have watched Groundhog Day yesterday.
Well, but Phil is still experiencing Groundhog Day, so you could still watch it. We're going to watch it on Friday.
That is true. That is true. So I could always go back and watch that. So I might do that sometime. But my week, though, has been not bad. It's been pretty uneventful for the most part. I went back and finished recording for one of the videos I had. So it took, I pretty much spent a lot of Sunday getting all that done, but I just have to at this point just edit everything together, and that'll be done on that end. But I still have to go back and take care of other stuff, but that's all going to be done after I get that behemoth finished. Last Friday, I got a message from one of my managers saying that one of the people is leaving the company to go somewhere else, and he asked me if I could take over one of his responsibilities. So I said yes. So I'm going to be starting doing that next week, although because the guy is leaving this week, I'm going to be going through training with him just to have him show me the ropes and stuff, so that way I can be up to speed. It seems like it's a little bit more technical maybe than what I'm used to, or at least what I usually do, but it doesn't seem like it's anything that's going to be too bad. So we'll just see what happens on that end. But yeah, other than that, not a whole lot has happened with me this past week.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to think of whether or not there's been much of anything on my end. It's mostly been just pretty standard stuff. Thankfully, we got... The weather was better enough that we were actually able to do church on Sunday, so that was good, because it felt weird having a week off of church anyway, and then so going back to the normal thing helped. But of course, that's still kind of thrown off the schedule because of the way that we have things scheduled. So like we have family groups 1 week, and then the next week we have discipleship on Wednesday nights, and so because of the fact that we skipped a week of family groups because of the snowstorm, Megan had to remind me, my wife had to remind me that we have family groups, that we have discipleship this week, because I was thinking that we didn't have it, and yeah, it's just been weird. My brain's been thrown off a bit by everything, but yeah, I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I guess there's nothing really all that significant. Thankfully we had a nice warmer day yesterday that was in like the 50s, so pretty much all the snow and ice melted, which was really good, because didn't get out much with the dogs and everything otherwise, just because it was really slick, and so it was good. Starting, we went out I took the dogs on Sunday, and then yesterday it had melted pretty much all the way, and today it was melted enough to where it's like the sidewalks were pretty much completely clear, so that's good. But yeah, nothing else I can really think of. So,
Yeah, let me borrow some of that heat for a while. We still have some nice piles of ice here and there, and some sidewalks still haven't been or also some streets haven't been cleared out yet. So let me borrow that heat for
right.
just a day or two
Yeah.
so that I have that melts up here.
Yeah. All right. Well, what have you been playing this week?
So I do have one primary game I've been playing, but I do have just a list of games that were briefly touched
Okay.
that I'll just mention off the bat. So let me just pull up that list quickly. So played briefly Elden Ring, Witcher 3, Satisfactory, Monster Hunter World, Power World, Crisis Remastered, and Code Vein. And these were primarily just to get some numbers here and there. But primarily I was playing more of that goodness known as Hades 2, and this game is just it's good. It's good. This is good stuff here. I finally managed on my third attempt to beat Chronos, and it was very close that time. And got through that. I was like, all right, cool. And I, learned some stuff in the story, and I'm like, all right, I think this is interesting. So then after I beat him another time, I decided, and I was able to actually get the incantation I needed. I said, I'm gonna go up ahead and try the overroad. I'm just gonna see what it's like, try and go through there, and see how far I can go. I went up to I went through there, and I was going up through different floors and stuff and through different areas, and then eventually I reached Prometheus, and I thought, all right, cool, here we are, we're at the end game now, I'm right here, this is the final boss, I'm ready to take him on. And so I'm going through the fight, and I'm just like, I went through several Death Defiances, and I was like, okay, I'm really close, I'm gonna get him. And so I managed to beat him by the skin of my teeth. And then I was like, all right, cool, great, let's get to the end of this. That was a good fight, but that's good. That's all she wrote. And then I kept going. I'm like, wait, that wasn't it. That wasn't the final boss. And then I kept realizing there's more to the game. So I managed to get to what I think is the end. And then I realized, where's the health bar at for this guy? Yeah. And I'm just like, oh no. So needless to say, I did not beat that boss fight there. But yeah, I after that point I said, you know what, I think I'm gonna stick in the underworld for a bit longer, just because I'm not ready for all of this right now. So I've been doing some more runs down there. I've been also trying to just upgrade some of my stuff, especially taking care of some challenges like the Chaos Trials as well, just to get some more materials, just to help level up stuff and get new things. So I've been primarily doing that so far. On occasion, I've been peeking my head back up on the surface just to try to see if I can make it far enough. Although I think because I'm also trying to get some of the stuff I need, or the improvements for the other weapons rather than my main weapon, I'm not making that much progress just because I'm not accustomed to them. Like the I think when I was using the giant axe, which deals a lot of damage, but it takes a whole week to get through all your swings. And then also that, I guess, sort of that mech-like armor, that one also I'm not really accustomed to too much. So I think I'm gonna try leveling those up primarily in the underworld, just because I'm more familiar with those areas, and I think it's just overall easier than taking care of stuff on the surface. But yeah, I think one thing I initially was thinking when I first started the game was, I have a feeling that the game is going to have a sort of shift similar to how Hades 1 had a shift, where after you play through a certain number of times, you realize that maybe certain things you thought about some people were incorrect, and there could be, a change in things. And then after going through a couple runs, I thought, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that isn't going to happen. Although after having probably my third or fourth win against Kronos, I thought maybe that is going to happen. So I'm really curious to see where the story goes. But overall, though, I am enjoying it, and this is just, like I said, more fun Hades 1 stuff, but just more of that and with different variety. But yeah, that is everything that I've been playing.
All right, so right now I'm watching your footage in Morning Fields or whatever it's called. Did you know that if you touch the there's a tree in there that if you touch it, then it will point you to all the different things you can find in each area?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have to get it. It's like, I think it's an incantation you have to do in order to get that. But once you get that, then you can just tap, you interact with it's like a single tree that you'll find that has nothing on it. And when you interact with that, it will send off lights in directions of all the different things you can get, both the ones that are like the main locked things that you have to when you touch them, then you have to fight off a bunch of enemies, and the single like smaller items that you can get as well. So if like there's additional coins or like a small health upgrade, that sort of thing. Oh yeah,
okay,
you do have it, because I can see in the footage I saw the glowing tree. So yeah, look for a single glowing tree in that area. That's very helpful for that. I mean, obviously if you come across stuff beforehand, you can grab it, but that's very helpful, especially if you have end up with a lot of littler upgrades. It'd be really helpful.
Oh, but since you mentioned that, I just thought about something. A question I have is, I know it's for Oceanus, but I can't remember if it's in Erebus as well. And actually, because of the Morning Fields, I thought about doing this. I know there are certain pathways that are sealed. In Oceanus, I think, like I said, maybe Erebus, right. And you have the option to unseal them. If you do that, is that sort of similar to how it is in the Morning Fields, where a group of enemies appear and then you have to defeat them before it's unsealed?
Yeah, it's a smaller group of enemies, but yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, I thought so, but initially when I was going through my runs, I thought, I'm not going to risk that right now. But since I've made more progress and I have better equipment and stuff, I thought, I could probably try doing that. But I just wanted to run that by you first to see like if that's what those did.
Yeah, and usually it's just a pretty small group of enemies. I've never had any difficulties with taking them out. Pretty much the only time I have avoided doing that has been either if I just don't really, like, I already see like one of the options is already open that looks like a good one I would want to go for, or if my health is really low, which doesn't really happen as much at this point as it used to. But of course, with this game, unlike with with Hades 1, you can't ever start off with as high of health as you can when you're running with Zagreus. So all right, good stuff. Yeah, I just watching the gameplay, I'm just like, man, this game is so great. It almost makes me want to go back and play some more. And I mean, realistically, if I was going to, I'd just go back to Hades 1, since I still don't have all the achievements in that. But yeah, Hades 2 is incredibly amazing. So good. All right, so as for my games that I played, first I'll just mention I played a little more Shadow of War. I didn't play very much, mostly just because I was getting kind of bored with it, to be honest. Like, part of the problem is that, like, I was trying to get back into the story, but it's hard to pay attention to the story while having something on in the background. And I just really needed a game that I could play with stuff on in the background, since I don't always have, games like that, or rather, because of the fact that the other thing I had been playing was, Apollo Justice, and that I have to pay attention to the story. So, um, I'll just mention the footage here. From is just last week's PC footage. I didn't record any new footage, or I had recorded some new footage on my Steam Deck, but it was not. It didn't work out the way I wanted it to, so I just ended up not even bothering with it, and then I accidentally deleted it. So, not really a big deal. Just kept my old footage, but so I was kind of trying to find some different stuff to play, just to have as like something to play in the background, while we have something like Psych on, which is what we're currently going through. So I played some more Banjo-Kazooie. I did make some more progress in that. I basically just completed the second world and got all the stuff in there. So yeah, I made some more progress in Banjo-Kazooie. I got through I can't remember the name of the level. It's something Cove, but it's like the second level basically that you can, it's one of the early levels you can do. So I finished doing all the stuff there. Didn't play a whole lot beyond that. But yeah, just playing on the Steam Deck. Mostly because like I thought about playing on my desktop, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I'd have to manually transfer my save, and didn't really feel like bothering with it, so I didn't. But I did end up trying out using a streaming software that's, it's a free streaming software that's supposed to work really well for streaming PC games to Steam Deck or phone or, what have you. And that's Apollo and Moonlight. And so I decided I would test it out with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And it works really well. I could get basically a locked 60 frames per second streaming to my Steam Deck. Visual quality's pretty solid. Initially, I was streaming it to where I had it set to stream at 1080p, and that worked pretty well. And but I didn't have it set to do it 90 frames per second, so it was initially just doing 60. The footage here is 60 anyway. But I tried modifying it later to do 800p 90, or maybe I still was doing 60. I think I switched it to 90, and I think it did work getting it to 90, but then the video quality went down because it was doing 800p. So the footage here is just the footage I recorded on the Steam Deck, doing 1080p 60, and like it doesn't. Obviously, it looks better on the desktop, but it still looked pretty good, and overall, I was very, very satisfied with how it worked. Unfortunately, this is another game where it's like I do want to pay attention to the story, because I am, moving forward in the story a bit. And so I didn't play as much that way. I kind of just started working on a specific dungeon that was, next in the story for Cosmo Canyon. Oh, speaking of which, something that I had said last week that was incorrect. I had said that Rebirth ends at the equivalent of the end of Disc 2 from the original Final Fantasy VII, but I was remembering incorrectly, and it's the end of Disc 1 that it ends for Rebirth. So that would mean that Part 3 is basically going to cover Disc 2 and 3, which, when you think about it, Disc 2 was a little bit shorter than Disc 1, or roughly about the same length, and then Disc 3 was very short. So I can see now how that would work a little bit better for Part 3, and assuming they don't pad it too much, which, we'll see what happens, then it might not be too bad. But anyway, so I streamed that. The setup was really simple, worked out really well, but it just, from the standpoint of being able to pay attention to it and Psych at the same time, just wasn't really working. So the bit of footage that's playing now is directly recorded on my PC. So 1440p, 120 frames per second, and looking gorgeous. I will say, I think I need to look up like how better to use Red 13, because I clearly just don't quite know how to use him well enough. And I was kind of rusty on like the mechanics and everything, and I died to this boss several times, which was very annoying. But the footage here that's playing is, you know, the victory run. But yeah, Rebirth is one of those where like I'm probably going to be playing it off and on, because it's like I want to continue it, but I also feel sometimes like the story feels more padded right now than it did for Remake, which is saying a lot because Remake was really padded. But I think because I just had such a good time with it, and there was to where it didn't really bother me, and maybe I just need to be in a different mindset to be able to fully enjoy this. But yeah, so that's really about the extent of what I have to say about Rebirth. But another thing that I checked out because of the fact that it was I found out that it was available is, you know, last week I had been talking about, Mario 64 was one of the N64 PC recompilations that was kind of difficult to figure out how to get the process started to get it running on PC and Steam Deck, and so I hadn't done it. And sure enough, a new port is out for Super Mario 64, so I ended up playing that quite a bit on my Steam Deck. And one of the things that I really like about this is, among other things, it's the fact that, of course, for one, it was very easy to set up. It was exactly the same setup as for the Ocarina of Time PC port, where it was just basically you download the tool, you import the ROM, it decompiles and recompiles it, and you're off to the races. All you have to do, you can modify a couple settings if you want to. I, of course, made it so that the frame rate would be the screen refresh rate, so it was, running a locked 90 frames per second on Steam Deck. Widescreen, of course, which is also very nice. There's one of the options that you can add in this version is making it so that it doesn't force you to exit the level every time you pick up a star. So while to some extent you'll still have to exit out because some of them don't appear in the same run, I was able to get like 5 or 6 of them in a single run without any problems, just because of the fact that there are several you can get just in your initial time going through. And this is just Bob on Battlefield. That's all I've done so far. It's just the very first level. And so yeah, it's basically like after you pick up the star, it just asks you if you want to save, and then you can either exit the level or stay in the level. And it's very nice being able to stay in because, Super Mario 64 is a great game, but that was one of the things that I really disliked about it, was just having to exit the level after every star gets picked up. Especially like if I happen to get almost the full 100 stars I needed, or 100 coins, to get the 100 coin star and get get almost all of the red coins, or get all the red coins, and it's like, oh, you have to exit the level now. It's like, So yeah, that's been really helpful from that standpoint. But yeah, runs great, looks great. I haven't done any of the mods beyond that. I know that there's one, it's like something 96, where basically it just makes all the character models match up with the original artwork that was on like the case and everything. I will probably end up doing that one, but yeah, I've just been very pleased with how it looks and runs, and having a great time with the bit that I played. Which I think I probably still have a handful of stars to get. I'm trying to think. I know I have the one that requires the wing hat, but I haven't gotten the wing hat yet, so I have to remember how to get that. I remember that there's some spot, I believe it's just in Peach's castle, that you have to go and like find an area that lets you unlock that so that you can use it any level that has it available. So I think that might be the only one I have left. But honestly, I don't remember. It's been a while since I played all the way through it. I 100%ed it on the 3D All-Stars version. So, but yeah, playing it at a higher frame rate is very, very helpful. I mean, why Nintendo couldn't do that, or didn't do that at least, on 3D All-Stars is just baffling. But yeah, so there's that. Of course, I'll mention, as with last week, I've played quite a bit more of Apollo Justice Ace Attorney, and I finished up the first full case, which is the second, like, proper case. Or no, it's the first proper case, because, like, you start off the game, you just have, like, an introductory thing where you're right in the middle of a trial, and then it's basically just teaching you the mechanics. That's short. And then you have a full case. I mean, you have 3 full cases after that, where you have the entire thing. And I completed the first one, and I'm probably about 2/3 of the way through the second one. So, still having a great time with that one. I'm looking forward to playing even more. In fact, before we recorded tonight, I played a bit more, and just about to go into what I believe might be the last section of this particular episode. So, the last trial section for that. So, I'm looking forward to continuing that. But with me trying to figure out what to play for, while we're watching Psych and everything, one of the games that I pulled out, which I actually didn't end up playing very long while doing Psych, because it was just requiring a little too much focus for me to be able to do both at the same time, but ended up coming back to, was Guacamelee 2. So, I finally managed, and this was separate from while we were watching Psych, I finally managed to get through those last remaining jump puzzles. Thank you, Jesus. I spent a bunch of time messing with it, trying to figure it out, or trying to get them. And it's just like the hardest part about those is just really the having to press buttons in a certain sequence, but also doing it very rapidly. And so it would be like there's and all the footage is playing here of what I had to do, but you have a section where you have 3 sets of red spike balls, and those red spike balls are instant kills. So if they hit you, you're dead. And then you have a second set where it's in a different dimension, and so it can't hit you until you shift dimensions, but you have to shift dimensions in order to make platforms appear, which makes the platform that you're standing on disappear. But it also, you have to get the timing just right to where you don't get hit by the spike balls. And in addition to the fact that I have terrible reflexes, it's also having to press the buttons in just the right sequence at the right speed. So it would be like, okay, I have to press down, then B, down, and then A, where, B on a Xbox PC controller. And then shift dimensions immediately after that. And you have to do this multiple times, and then you just have to make sure that when you land on a platform and you shift dimensions again, that that you're actually on a solid platform rather than one that'll disappear when you shift dimensions. And sometimes it's just getting the timing just right, and yeah. What made it even more annoying was that, so there was 3 sections left for this last bit of jump puzzles, and for the last bit of puzzles for the challenges, and the first 2 were back to back. There was no save point thing in between, and so if you made it through the first one and then you got killed by the spikes in the second one, it took you back to the beginning of the first one. And so I spent a ton of time going back and forth, having to redo these, until today I finally managed to get through the second one. Then I could go down, unlock a shortcut, which would make it so I wouldn't have to redo those again. Thank you, Jesus. And then when I went to the third one, it was still challenging, but nowhere near as much, especially because of the fact that I knew that once I finished that one, that was it. And so I did those, and then I went and went to do remaining cleanup and to beat the game. So I beat the game today, and there was actually a good reward that came out of completing those challenges, because those are technically optional as well. But I think they're still necessary for the best ending, for the good ending. And what you got was, it basically made it so that you have an up A/up B move that you can use as the chicken, that basically just launches you up in the air at an angle, or down, depending on, if you're trying to break blocks, that sort of thing. But normally you can only do it, you start off, you can only do it once before you have to land somewhere in order to do it again. Then you get an upgrade through doing some of the challenges that makes it so you can do it twice before you have to land again. And this makes it so that you can do it as many times as your stamina allows. So it became pretty useful. It's kind of like the screw attack, except that it's not completely infinite, because the screw attack is essentially infinite. So it was pretty good from that standpoint. Then what was nice about that is, like, going into the last dungeon leading up to the boss, there are a handful of jump puzzles. I mean, none of them are anywhere near as difficult as the ones that I'd done before, but some of them, it really just made them completely trivial, being able to do that infinite Poyo shot is the name of the move. So there's like one of them, like to get the very last health upgrade, that I looked at the puzzle, and normally there's no way to get up to the chest above, because it's like at the end right above you, but because of the fact that you're limited on your moves and everything, you can't get up there unless you go through the whole jump puzzle sequence, so that you can get over there and then you can pick up the upgrade. But because of the fact that I had that upgrade, I could just go whoop, 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 right up and got it. Didn't even have to do this puzzle. It's like, yes, that made it a little more worth it. But yeah, in the end of it all, pretty much my thought is, I would not want to have to do those jump puzzles ever again if I could help it. I don't know that I would ever replay the game because of that. I mean, in the end, like, I'm glad I completed them all, but so many of them were so frustrating, and it's like, okay, this wasn't even worth it from that standpoint. Yes, the ultimate reward was worth it, especially because I could beat the final boss as a chicken. Or at least I had to switch back and forth sometimes in order to break his shields, but the final blow was as a chicken, so I was very happy about that. And yeah, it's just like I actually did try using my my QRD controller, with the back buttons and everything. Tried programming a macro, and that worked, but my muscle memory is so weird on that because of the fact that I'm used to using it with PC games and everything. To where even when I changed the layout on the Switch, like did a custom layout so that it would be A would be B and vice versa, and X and Y would be switched as well, the D-pad was actually throwing me off a bit, because the D-pad is good, but it feels very different in terms of the muscle memory than using the split D-pad that the Switch Joy-Cons have. So it was just throwing me off, and I didn't try it for very long before I decided, no, I'll just stick to playing normally, and that ultimately ended up working out after many attempts. And yeah, like I said, I was right, though, that once I completed those jump puzzles, that the rest of it was significantly easier. The final boss didn't give me much trouble. I mean, I think I died probably a couple times to him. One time for sure, maybe twice. but he wasn't overly difficult. I think I had more difficulty with the final boss of the first game than I did with him. And I think it was just mostly because compared to the other challenges, especially the platforming challenges, it was really nothing. So yes, I'm finally done with Guacamelee 2, and I'm very pleased that I'm finally done with Guacamelee 2. And that is everything.
All right. So I guess first off, congratulations on completing Guacamelee 2 and finally being able to put those puzzles behind you at last. You mentioned you were using the controller, and I mean, I know you said that some stuff threw you off. Did using any of the back buttons help at all for you? As far as like, were you like mapping certain things? I guess maybe to help you with, say,
yeah. So
shifting dimensions.
Yes and no, because it was helpful in that I could program, the 3 actions back to back, and that worked. But the problem was because of the fact that I still had to do some movement with the D-pad, that movement was throwing me off in between. And so it just ended up not being worth doing. I just decided it was easier to stick to the Joy-Cons and just play in handheld. Speaking of which, I'll mention all the recordings here are recorded directly from the Switch, which is why they're low resolution and only 30 frames per second instead of 60. Even though the game actually runs at 60 on the system.
Then going back, I guess for a couple reasons. So, with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you mentioned that it felt a bit padded, more so than the first game, and it was, I guess, slowing things down. Is it mainly just because of the extra side content that you mentioned before, or is it just seem like the story is sort of more stretched than the first game?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, there are definitely elements of padding in the story. Honestly, part of it that where it was kind of hitting me a little bit more, was after you finish Cosmo Canyon, you go to an area that I'm pretty much positive was not in the original game. And so for wanting to like just progress in the story, it kind of felt like, okay, why do we have this extra section that was never in the original game? It felt kind of pointless to me. That being said, I think it's also just that I'm not really in the right mindset, because I had more of a limited amount of time to play when I was playing, and I think it's also because I was feeling a little antsy, because I wanted, like, of course I was looking for something that I could play that would work well for, like, while we have Psych on in the background. And this game just wasn't working for that. But then also, I just haven't quite gotten used to the combat again yet. And so then it was just kind of making it feel even more padded. And there's just a variety of things behind that. But I think ultimately it's just a matter of I have to be in the right mindset. Like, I have to go into it just wanting to play this game instead of it being like, I kind of want to play, but then I also want to play other stuff at the same time. Yeah, so I don't know with this game. I mean, like, I want to fully enjoy it, and I'm sure that once I get like back into it, I will really enjoy it. But I also remember that, like, when I first finished Remake, it took me a while to get back to it and do like all the extra content in that, to get all achievements. And once I got back into it, it was like, oh, I'm having a great time with it, apart from the fact that, one of the bosses, one of the optional bosses, the hardest of the whole game, is absurdly difficult. Yeah.
Okay. And you said the software you used to stream to your Steam Deck was called Apollo Moonlight?
No, it's 2 pieces of software. Apollo is what you use to stream the games from your PC. Moonlight is what you use to stream to your Steam Deck or phone or whatever.
Okay. Let me make that note then here.
And I've heard some say Apollo and Artemis is another option of something you can do. But I haven't looked into Artemis. I tried out Apollo and Moonlight, and it worked out really well.
Okay, I'll definitely look into that then. And I guess like it just provides a better streaming quality than say like regular.
Yeah, it's dramatically better than just doing it through Steam, because Steam's is like really inconsistent. Like sometimes it's really, really solid, and then other times it's not at all. And here it was solid the whole time. I think it might have disconnected me one time, but otherwise it was really solid the whole time and had that nice flawless 60 frames per second. So
all right, I'll definitely check that out then, because that'll be pretty useful then. Yeah, I think those are all the questions that I had.
all right, sounds good. Well, right now there is a rumor of a Nintendo Direct coming up this week. It's a rumor that came from Nate the Hate, so it's very likely it's happening. And he basically has confirmed that it's supposed to be a partner Direct. So it's going to be third-party games. That's all we know for sure. I believe he said it was supposed to be probably Thursday, the 5th, I believe is what he said. Or, no, that's... Maybe it was the 4th. I can't remember. Let's see. Yeah, the 5th. Because today is Tuesday the 3rd. So yes, Thursday the 5th, I'm pretty sure is what he said, is when it's supposed to be taking place. So we're just going to throw some predictions out there, not expecting to be accurate necessarily. And by the time this episode comes out, the Direct will have already aired, so you can just see how near the target and how far away we were. So, I guess let's just go back and forth, and why don't you start off with one of your predictions?
All right, so my first prediction is going to be Metaphor ReFantazio. That's a game that hasn't been confirmed yet for the Switch 2, and I really think that is a game that is going to come over, and it definitely should come over. So I think it's really just a matter of when Sega Atlas is going to port it, but I think there's no apart from just having the time to make the port, I really can't find a reason as to why they wouldn't do it. I mean, I think with their history of porting more and more Persona games over, and especially with Sega's stance now at making games as multi-platform as possible, there's no reason why it shouldn't be on the Switch too.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. That was actually the first game on my list as well. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. They're obviously going to do it. They put like all of their recent releases on the Switch. Switch 2 in the case of Persona 3 Reload and Metaphor ReFantazio. Like it's a perfect fit for the Switch 2. I'm hoping, probably beyond hope, that it will be fully on cartridge, because if it actually was, I would buy it. I would be happy to support that because I appreciate Atlus's games. I won't buy Persona 3 Reload because it's not on the cartridge. But Metaphor, if it was fully on the cartridge, I would buy it because I think that's worth it to have a physical copy. But yeah, I agree with that prediction. I think that this is the time that they are finally going to show it off. My first prediction is actually going to be a pretty obvious one, but I believe that they're going to give us a confirm the release date for Elden Ring. So, because we already know that it's been it was supposed to come out last year. They ended up pushing it back. Last we saw, the performance was drastically improved, so at least it's getting 30 frames per second, which is, I mean, really it should be 60, but obviously I wouldn't expect it to be on Switch 2. But yeah, the last preview we saw, it was actually doing well at 30 frames per second and not having significant frame drops like it was when it was first revealed. So that's my prediction.
Yeah, That's pretty good. I didn't think about that per se. I mean, I'll mention something in my next one, but I think that I definitely can see that happening. I mean, I think it definitely makes sense since they've had time to let the game cook some more, and
Yeah.
it should be a much better product, and to the point where they can say, okay, it's going to release. Do you think it will still? I mean, or at least I can't remember what it was before. Do you think it will be digital only / key card, or do you think?
Yeah, I
could
think it's going to be a
chance
key
for...
card. I don't know what the size is with all content, including the DLC, but I want to say it's too big for one of their cards. I would like to think that they would at least do the full main game on a card, because the 64 gig card would definitely be enough for that. But I could see, I mean, the best case scenario obviously would be that they have a card that's big enough to hold the entirety of the game. But since that's not going to happen, and believe me, I would love to be wrong, I think that the next best case scenario is that the full base game will be on the card, and that the DLC will have to be downloaded separately. But yeah, I personally, I think most likely it's going to be another game key card, and it's just going to have the download, and the cart will be basically worthless. I mean, at that point, I'd kind of rather they just do digital only, but you know.
All right. So in that sort of same vein, my next pick was actually going to be Duskbloods. I think it's been a while since we've heard more about that.
Yeah.
And considering the fact that it is supposed to be coming out this year, I was also thinking that we would probably hear something more concrete about the game, and maybe even get at least maybe release month, if not more so of a date, just because it probably could be, getting close to being ready. I mean, I don't think it's going to necessarily say, I don't think it's like come out, let's say first quarter, maybe second quarter, but maybe sometime third quarter of this year it'll come out. But I think it's definitely a game where we could probably hear something more, get some more information, and then just get a pretty solid or near solid release date for the game.
Yeah, that one was on my list as well. I think that we'll at least get some more information on it, potentially a release date, or at least a release window. I really am hoping beyond hope that they're going to confirm that it's actually going to have like more of a regular single player type mode instead of, or maybe something that doesn't have PvP involved with it. I mean, really the ideal would be that, apart from just making it a purely single player game, would be to have the option of doing the game single player and being able to turn off the PvP elements. Not obviously not making it like a full like Souls-like game where it's going to be just a single player game, pure and simple, but say, okay, this is a multiplayer game, but you can do it single player, kind of like what you can do with Night Rain, but then there's no PvP. Would be great. But from what they said about it last year, it's going to have PvP and PvE, and it's going to be multiplayer only, which is just three things that I don't want to hear. Because I would love to be able to support this, but I just don't have any interest if it's that. It's kind of like with Night Rain. Like, I know Night Rain is great because of everything I've heard, and because Elden Ring is great. But I'm not interested because it's multiplayer. And because of the PvP stuff, especially the PvP stuff. That's the biggest thing for me. That's just like, no thanks. I don't really want my game experience to be ruined by random people coming in and killing me. It's like, I just want to play the game. Play it normally. But we'll see what happens with that. I do think that we'll at least get an update, though. I agree with you on that. Now, my next prediction is very much a hopium prediction that they're going to release the Dark Souls trilogy on the Switch 2. And that if you already own Dark Souls 1, there will be a discount. And that Dark Souls 1 will get an update for 60 frames per second. And that the full game will be on a card. That's a whole lot of hopium there, because I'd say the likelihood of the game coming, period, is very, very low. Let alone all the other stuff. But if they did all of that, if the game was fully on cartridge, if they did an update for Dark Souls Remastered and gave you a discount, at least a discount on the digital. The discount I care about a little bit less. If they had it fully on the cartridge, I wouldn't care as much, because I would just be like, okay, I'll buy it. I'll buy it. You know, that's something I would be willing to support and probably replay Dark Souls 3 on there and stuff. But as it stands, once again, very hopium type of prediction.
Yeah, that would be really great to see. I agree, that is definitely hopium, but you know, if they did do that though, that would be great. And I mean, even though I don't even have my Switch anymore, I probably would just buy the collection just because. I mean, I still have my copy of, No, I don't have that because I gave that to my brother-in-law. So I don't have my copy of Dark Souls 1 anymore. But I probably would still just go ahead and buy the full trilogy just to have it, just because. So, yeah, if they did do that and they had like all the games on carts, I would buy it. Just like I said, just because. And it would be great also if they did, give you the improved version that, say, like the PS4, Xbox One had, where it did run at 60 frames per second. So if we did do that, that would be
with the first one.
Yeah,
Dark Souls 3, as far as I know, did not run at 60 on PS4 and Xbox One. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure. I know that Dark Souls Remastered and Dark Souls 2, I think just Scholar of the First Sin, both did 60 on PS4 and Xbox One. But yeah, I think Dark Souls 3 is stuck at 30 on consoles. So that's the one downside as well, though. If it came over, it would probably be 30 on the Switch 2 as well. Even though it could run at 60, because the Steam Deck does a pretty good job doing 60. It's really only the Ringed City and just that first section in Dreg's Heap that it's actually dropping below, and the rest of the time it can easily do 60. So yeah, definitely a whole lot of hopium. All right, what's your next prediction?
I have, I guess, sort of one more prediction, and this one is also kind of a hopium scenario, and this is just going to be Clear Obscure Expedition 33. And it's really just me wanting more people to play this game. So I'm just like, if they said, hey, we've got this one game that you might know, and it's like, oh, you see that Sandfall Interactive logo, and you're like, wait a second, what is this? And you start hearing the music, and then you start seeing the flower petals. You're like, no way. And then you just see Expedition 30. Then like, yes. Now, I'm really not certain how this game would even run on the Switch. And sure, it's more powerful than the Steam Deck, but the Steam Deck was not that great. I mean, it wasn't even decent at all running on there. So even with DLSS, I'm still skeptical as far as to how well it could run on the Switch too. It would obviously be like a 30 frames per second type of thing, but still, I'm just questioning how the visuals would look as well. But if they did manage to port that over, though, I would think that would be very great and very cool. But it's just hoping on my part. I don't really expect it to be there, but if it was there, that I would still think that would be neat.
Well, actually, I think that there's a very good chance it will come over, and I think it could even be announced. Now, will it come out this year? That part I'm not sure about, but I do think that there is at least a decent possibility it would be announced. I think it's going to come over eventually, one way or the other. It's just a question of whether it'll be announced right away or not, and that obviously just depends on how far along it is and whether they want to get the announcement out early or if they want to wait until they're far along in the porting process. I would say that it's going to be targeting 30 frames per second regardless. May have some drops. It's hard to say exactly what will happen. I mean, if it is in fact stronger than the Steam Deck like it should be, theoretically, then hopefully they could maintain 30 frames per second. I still think the game is a whole lot better if you can play it at a higher frame rate, but I also want people to play the game, period, because it's an amazing game, and a lot of Nintendo-only people really missed out not being able to play this last year. And so, yeah. I mean, the other good thing is that it's a $50 game, so there's not a whole lot of games like that, especially a game of that high quality on the Switch 2. And that's not to say that there aren't great games on the Switch 2. There are, but it's rare that you'd get something that would be that great of a game for that price. So, yeah. All right. My next prediction is going to be more hopium. And that is that we're going to get Sekiro Shadows Die Twice also on the Switch 2. It's like, you can see there's a bit of a theme here, It's like, hey, give me more reasons to buy these FromSoft games. I have these games on PC, and I've played them quite a bit. I mean, I've beaten all the Dark Souls games, in some cases multiple times. I have not beaten Sekiro yet, and I do intend to get back to it this year and hopefully play the rest of it. But yeah, I very much would like to see that happen, and I mean, why not? It was a PS4/Xbox One game. Most likely it would just be 30 frames per second, even though they definitely could get it up higher if they wanted to put in the time. But it's a game that should come over to Nintendo, because obviously it couldn't come over to the base Switch. So Switch 2 should get Sekiro.
Okay. So I'm gonna say, unless they were being very, very, very lazy with porting this, I think they would go ahead and just make it 60. Like you said, the Switch 2 can definitely run it at 60. I mean, you can get it running at 60 most of the time on the Steam Deck, so the Switch 2 should definitely be running at 60 pretty much locked. And like, I mean, they would just have to like really be phoning it in just to not even do that. But I think there's no reason why it shouldn't. Now, as far as will it come, I'm actually probably going to say there could be a higher chance of them porting Sekiro over than the Dark Souls trilogy. I think maybe probably just because it's one game rather than three, they might say, yeah, let's just do it this, and then, we'll call it a day. So, I mean, I think there's more of a chance that it'll happen. Would be nice to see all 4 of those games come over. Yes, but I think that would probably be one that they port over. Although I think because of the fact that unless they've been outsourcing this port to a degree, they probably would be having this game release much later, maybe within like a year or two, just because they've been focusing on Elden Ring and Duskbloods for the moment. But it could come over. But if it does come over, it'll probably just be like at a later date. Now, actually, because of what you've been going through and what you've been talking about, it made me now just think about one game that also would just be sort of a hopium type of thing, and that is actually going to be Armored Core 6. So I think because of the fact that this is also while not as possibly as recent as, say, Elden Ring, this is one of From Software's more recent titles. And
it's newer than Elden Ring.
I think... Oh, never mind. That is more recent than Elden Ring. So I think because of the fact that, it is a more recent title and it wasn't possible to get this running on the Switch 1, I think porting this to Switch 2 is much more viable. And so, From Software might say, yeah, let's make some more money and put this on the Switch 2, and, that'll be great. Because, I mean, to my knowledge, there hasn't been an Armored Core game on a Nintendo platform before. So,
no,
I think this would definitely be... So, I think this would be a pretty good way for people to get into the series. Of course, it's Armored Core 6 has some different elements, just because From Software has been borrowing a little bit from the Souls genre, but not to a huge extent.
Yeah.
But it'll be a good way for people to dip their toes into the franchise and just get interested in it. So, yeah, I think it's possible. But similar to, like I said, with Sekiro, that would be a release that's coming like in a year or so, just because of time being invested into Duskbloods and Elden Ring.
Yeah. No, I actually agree. I had Armored Core on my list as well. It's definitely one of those where it would make sense to bring it over, and a lot of these are ones where I look at them. I don't know necessarily if they'll be announced at the Direct this week, or if it's something more along the lines of it'll be announced at future Directs. I think that at least some of them will probably come over. I think Armored Core is more likely than Sekiro or the Dark Souls trilogy. But, I mean, that's only a few years old at this point, so I don't see any reason why it couldn't... Well, not just a question of whether or not it could, but why it wouldn't come over. I think that there's a very real possibility that we'll see it. And the fact that it runs as well as it does on the Steam Deck, at least in the first level it did, ran really well. I'm sure they could probably make it work to do 60, or at least targeting 60 frames on the Switch 2. But yeah, I agree on that one. Well, continuing along that theme, Liza P. I'm just like, bring all the Souls likes and Soulsvanias and all that stuff over. Soulstroidvanias. I think that's a better way. Because I've seen someone say Soulsvania, but I'm like, but then you're leaving out the Metroid side, and Metroid really was the originator of some of those things. But it's like, so yes, Soulstroidvania. I think more Souls type games on the Switch 2. Bring them over. Put them entirely on the cartridge. Give me a reason to buy them, because right now I have not bought a single physical game for Switch 2. I bought Switch 1 games galore. I have a lot of Switch 1 games physical, but I have not bought any for Switch 2 because the games aren't on the cartridge. They're and the ones that are games I don't care about. And something I do want to back up on for people who are listening to our podcast for the first time. Between the two of us, Justin here used to have a Switch, gave it away. I have a Switch 2 and a Switch OLED. In fact, I have a few Switches in my household. I had thought about / tried to sell my Switch 2. Didn't really have any success getting things to work out with a listing and whatnot through Marketplace, because I didn't want to do it through eBay. And I ended up repurchasing a Switch OLED so that I could play my Switch 1 games better. And I've kept that, and that's where I'm playing my Switch 1 games, is on the Switch OLED. At least unless they have an upgrade for the Switch 2. But anyway, so I'm the only one who has a Switch 2. It's kind of collecting dust, but if something gets brought over that's worth it, that I can't already play at better visuals and or performance, or has a full physical version on the Switch 2, then I'd be willing to buy it. Otherwise, there's really not any reason. Like, I didn't buy Persona 3 Reload, even though they finally did add a 60 frames per second mode, because of the fact that the game is not fully on the cartridge, and because I don't see the benefit to getting it when I already have it on Steam Deck running at 60 frames per second, and I don't have to start over, and it's digital, and I can... Yeah, anyway. So, going back to the main topic, Liza P was my last prediction. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that definitely would be great to have brought over. I mean, I think there's definitely no reason why this game couldn't run well, in my opinion, you know, targeting 60 on the Switch 2. The only thing that would be, I guess, an issue for people who want it complete is the fact that if they decided to have the game on cartridge, they would only probably really just be able to have the base game, and they probably wouldn't be able to have the expansion DLC on there as well. So that would probably be something that would have to be downloaded separately. But because I mean, I don't remember how large the base game is.
It's not very big. I want to say it's like 45 gigs or something like that. Let me check and see.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, so maybe they could get the DLC then onto the cartridge as well, if they get like a 64.
Okay, it's actually 60 gigs. But I'm not sure if that's 60 gigs including the DLC, like, because some games, like, you'll have the DLC downloaded to the game, and then once you purchase it, it just unlocks it. So I'm not positive on that, but it is at least 60 gigs for the game.
Okay. Well, then at the very least, they should be able to put the base game on the on a cartridge. So if they did do that, that would be great. But I feel like if they did bring the game over, there's a 50-50 chance it'll be a game on a key card, which unfortunately, is like sort of more so the gamble we have these days with the Switch 2, unfortunately. But that overall, though, that would be a good game. That would be a game that would be able to run well on there, and I see no problem with bringing it over. And just getting more of that Souls like on the go is always incredible.
Perfect game for that. All right, your next prediction.
This one was another one that I sort of just thought about recently, and that is actually going to be Final Fantasy 16.
Oh yeah.
I think it should be possible to get that game running, targeting 30 frames per second on the Switch 2. So it's definitely more capable than the Switch 1. I think that's definitely possible, and considering that Square also is having that initiative to put their games on as many platforms as possible, the Switch 2 is definitely a contender in that regard. So it's probably not a game that will come out this year, but something that would be in the pipeline. In fact, I'm almost confident this game will come to the Switch 2, just because Square wants to put their games everywhere now. So we'll definitely just have to wait and see when that happens.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've forgotten about 16, but that actually would make perfect sense for them to bring that over. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Very likely. Whether or not it'll be announced, we'll see. But I'd say it's pretty much guaranteed it'll come over at some point. It's just a question of whether it'll be sooner or later. But along a similar vein, this is more of a coming back down to Earth prediction. I think that we'll just get kind of like a confirmation of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like maybe a release window for that. I mean, I'm sure it's still going to require some work because that game doesn't run very well on Steam Deck, and the Switch 2 is theoretically more powerful, so hopefully it'll run better. But either way, I would think they probably would just target 30 frames per second because that's what they did with Remake. Remake is 30. It looks great though. And Rebirth, I think if they have to tweak some stuff, especially with the open world, to get it to maintain 30. I don't think there's any chance of doing 60 though. Because if they couldn't do 60 with Remake, they're not going to do it with Rebirth because Rebirth is more demanding than Remake. So that is a downside. But it could still end up being it will be a big hit whenever it comes. We know it's coming. It's just a question of like when and everything. And really, I think that them announcing it would be not so much announcing that it's coming, but announcing like a release window so that people have an idea of when to expect it.
Yeah, I definitely think that makes a whole lot of sense. And I mean, the games are like most likely just, like you said, gonna be coming over to every platform, and it's just a matter of when the timed exclusivity with Sony ends. And so I mean, I think getting that window makes sense, and then later that day, because the other platforms don't show up during Nintendo Directs, we'll see some sort of announcement also saying like for Xbox is coming during that same period as well. So we'll like see like some sort of small announcements, but I think that definitely makes sense to get a window time frame for that release.
For sure. All right, next prediction.
Yeah, this is the last one that I have, and this is going to be Ninja Gaiden 4.
Oh. Yeah.
The game originally came out on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 5, and it didn't come out on the Switch 2, and that's possibly just because there might not have been enough time to develop for the system, but I think that there is enough time. And I mean, sure, it's using Unreal Engine 5, and that could be, actually, have there been any UE5 games released on the Switch thus far that you can think of?
And we talked about this last week. I think the only thing that probably is on UE5 is Fortnite. I'm not sure if there's anything else.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So I guess because of that, maybe that's possibly caused some delays. Maybe not. But I think maybe just because of the timing of things with when the game came out and when the Switch came out somewhat earlier in the year. But there probably wasn't enough time during development to get the game ready in time. So they probably were just going to delay any type of port. So we could get an announcement saying like maybe fall or winter of this year at the maybe the earliest. Maybe that would be like a rough middle ground, but I think we could get a potential window as far as when this game would come out on the Switch 2.
Ninja Gaiden 4, yeah, I think that there's a very solid chance we'll see something about that, even if it's just announcing that it's coming. And so yeah, I'd say that's very likely. We'll see something about that one way or another. My next one is that we're going to get confirmation of Persona 4 Revival coming over to the Switch 2. I doubt we would necessarily see any significant like real trailer necessarily. Even though I would hope that if they're going to show something, they would show something more than just the little teaser that they showed before. Because that teaser that we saw before for Revival was like extremely basic, and seeing that same exact teaser again, be like, okay, I mean, it's like, okay, great, it's coming over. I mean, it will come over. It's just a question of whether they announce it now or if they wait until after they've actually gotten to the point of having real gameplay to show off, which, you know, who knows when that's going to be. Though I guess it would probably be sometime this year because of the 30th anniversary.
So I guess a question I would have then, as far as if they would announce it at this direct, if Atlas were to announce other games, like anything we announced earlier, like say Metaphor, do you think in passing they might say also Persona 4 Revival is coming, rather than just, you know, give us the same teaser?
Yeah.
Or
that would probably make more sense. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that would actually make more sense to do that. All right. I do still have some other predictions here, and once again, a lot of this is just me throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. First of all, this one's really kind of pushing it, but both an announcement of Death Stranding Director's Cut, which, you know, I still think will probably come over at some point. But then also the first announcement of Death Stranding 2 coming over. Which, of course, would be followed by it, you know, being announced for PC at minimum, if not also Xbox. It's been over 6 months since Death Stranding 2 came to PS5, so theoretically, it would be a good time for them to announce it again. I mean, I'm sure that if Microsoft had their way, they would probably want to announce it at one of their events. But if they do announce the first Death Stranding coming over to Switch 2, it would be a perfect opportunity to announce Death Stranding 2 coming as well. Even though I would imagine probably Death Stranding 2 wouldn't be on Switch 2 till 2027. But I don't know. I guess it's possible it could come out this year. I would think, though, that obviously, if they're going to bring Death Stranding over, they'd bring the first one first. But I could see them announcing both at the same time. And they could even potentially just be like, Death Stranding 2 is also coming, but then they don't have a release date or even a release window. And then it separately will get announced, oh, it's coming to Steam and or Xbox. And those would probably be more likely to get release dates or release windows. So
yeah, I think that sounds plausible. And it would make sense to sort of, especially if say the Switch 2 version's coming out next year, if they went ahead and just said, hey, we've got Death Stranding, it's coming out this spring or this summer, and next year you can go ahead and play the sequel to Death Stranding 2, and that would be amazing. And, you know, I think, like you said, if they announce Death Stranding 2 in a separate announcement, Kojima would go ahead and announce that, yeah, it's coming also to Xbox and PC. And at the very least, we're pretty certain that the PC version is coming because of the ratings that were given both by, I think, the ESRB and the South Korean rating system. So it's pretty much all been but confirmed to be coming to PC. It's just a matter of when. But if it is announced for Switch 2, it's definitely going to be announced that same day in a separate announcement for PC. But I think we would be likely to get a solid date for PC, and that would be sometime this year, in my opinion.
Yep. All right. Next thing I have that is, I think, it's going to be announced at some point. I just don't know if it's going to be this direct or not, and that's Diablo 4. I think that there's a very solid chance it's going to be coming over. It's definitely going to be a visual downgrade from the other console versions, but I think it'll probably, at least maintaining 60 frames per second, I think it will look better than the Steam Deck does to maintain 60 frames per second. Because Steam Deck, you can get 60, you can even get pretty much a locked 60, but it looks bad. I mean, it's low settings, but it runs great. It runs well enough that, my wife, when she plays, she always plays on the Steam Deck. So, yeah, I think that there's a more than reasonable chance we'll see it at some point. I just don't know if it'll be this time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I had not thought about that, but I think that's definitely possible. Now, do you think, similar to Diablo 3, there might be some exclusive sort of cosmetic content for the game, or do you think they'll just be, here's the game, here's support, and that's it?
That's an interesting thought. Honestly, I'm not sure. Yeah, because I mean, like, there was a big gap between when 3 came out on consoles and when it came to the Switch. So they had a lot of time to play around with that. And I mean, it certainly could happen. I'm just not sure if it will. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe. All right. Let's see here. Making sure I'm not missing anything else. Okay, I have one last prediction, and I think it's... I'm like 90% sure this is going to be announced, and it could even be... I'm just going to say, I think it's going to be announced at the Direct. At this Direct. Monster Hunter Wilds. I think it's happening. Especially because Capcom has been working on optimizing the game on PC, and if they've had to optimize it for a lower powered device, that could be a big part of the reason why the performance has improved as much as it has on PC, is because they've figured out some optimization tricks. I think this has been rumored for a while, but yeah, I'd say I think they're going to announce Monster Hunter Wilds coming to Switch 2.
I think it's definitely a possibility.
And to be clear, it runs better on the Steam Deck now too. You can even do pretty close to locked 30.
Okay, so maybe they could port that over. Maybe they could port it over. I mean, if there have been improvements to the game, and I mean, of course, that's gonna be something separately we talk about later. But if there have been improvements made, then sure, why not? I don't see any reason with not to do that. And I mean, considering the fact that Monster Hunter has been very popular on Nintendo handhelds, I think, giving more people Monster Hunter goodness, especially on the go, is definitely would definitely be great. Now, and I also would like them to incorporate the local multiplayer as well, because one of the greatest things about playing Monster Hunter, like say the 3DS, then this would have been possible. This also would have been possible on the Switch one as well. Is just playing multiplayer in in public and stuff, and just playing the game. Like that was definitely fun. Going on hunts, on the go, which unfortunately is one thing that I wish would have been great, is if there would have been like some way to have local co-op on the Steam Deck, because that would be cool. But if you want to do that, you actually have to get Switch or 3DS just to do that. So yeah, I think that would make sense to have it to port the game to the Switch too, especially if it's running a whole lot better than it was, way earlier on.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't even attempted to play it on the Steam Deck, but from what I've seen of videos, it's running a lot better than it was before. And I have it downloaded on my laptop because I want to test it out there and see how it's doing now. Because it's like if I run it on my desktop, I mean, it will probably run better there, but my desktop is already really powerful, so it was already running well before they did all the fixes. So I think the real test is going to be doing it on that laptop that's like that mid-range, midway in between the Steam Deck and my desktop. So, but yeah. I do have one final prediction, and this one is pretty much guaranteed. Well, maybe not guaranteed. We know the game is coming to Switch 2, so it's just a matter of whether they show it at this direct or not. And that is Indiana Jones and the Freaky Circle, because they've already said that it's coming over to Switch 2. At least I can't remember if they officially said it or if it was just a rumor, but I'm pretty much positive that they officially announced that it would be coming over. And so it's just a matter of actually seeing footage of, you know, how it looks and runs on the Switch 2. Once again, I firmly believe that if it is shown, it's just going to be 30 frames they're going to be targeting. They're not going to try to go above that because it's definitely going to be too demanding. Even though I've heard it's pretty well optimized, the Switch 2 is just not that powerful. So,
that definitely makes sense. I'm pretty certain it was confirmed to come over, but I just don't remember like when it was announced. But yeah, I think that definitely makes sense for them to announce that. Now, as far as when it would come out, I would probably say fall or winter of this year, maybe. I think that would probably be a reasonable time.
Yeah. I did actually have one more prediction that I didn't write down, but just came to mind. Doom: The Dark Ages.
Ooh.
I don't know if it would be a like if it would be something that would be coming out soon, but I think that they could make it work. Because it can run on the Steam Deck decently. I mean, it's not great, but the Switch 2 is supposed to be more powerful, plus it has DLSS, so it should at least be able to do 30. I don't see any reason why it couldn't. I seem to remember when I was running it on the Steam Deck, I ended up targeting 40 and it was doing pretty well at that. Still not the ideal way to play. Like, there's a reason I didn't keep it installed on the Steam Deck, but you know, it definitely is something that could be done. Of course, what I would love to see is I would love them to do performance patches for Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, because the Switch 2 can easily run those games at 60 frames per second. But I feel like those would require probably quite a bit more work because it's not as simple as it is with PC. To get it all optimized and stuff, especially doing it for 2 games. Whereas, you know, on PC, it's just like you have more powerful hardware, the game runs better. Simple as that. But yeah, because like I played Doom 2016 and Eternal both on the Switch, the original Switch, before I played them on PC. And Eternal especially was impressive what they did visually and everything, and the fact they were actually able to maintain a pretty consistent frame rate. But neither game was a great experience. I mean, like it was great the first time, but then once I played them on PC and Steam Deck, it's like this is not even close to the same in terms of quality, especially because I can get a locked 60 for both games on the Steam Deck while still looking really good. And the Switch, I could get 30 with some drops, and I think Eternal definitely looked better than 2016, but neither one looked great on Switch. So, yep.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, and it would be nice to have those Switch 2 upgrades, but like you said, might not be likely.
Yeah.
But it would be great though. To get that 60 frames per second.
Yeah, just all the more reason why I'm tired of consoles. But, like as of right now, I'm just holding on to the Switch 2 because it's like, okay, I'm not really playing it right now, but there will be games here and there that'll be worth it. The main thing is I can play the Switch 1 backlog on the Switch OLED, and I'm very happy with that. And anytime they do an upgrade to a Switch 1 game that's in my backlog, it's like, hey, I'll try that out, assuming it's not a charge for it. There are some games I'd be willing to pay extra for, pay an extra $10, even if I would do it begrudgingly. But there aren't many. It's basically like games that are longer, like Xenoblade. I would be willing to do it, or at least Xenoblade Chronicles X, just because that one's a nice meaty game that I think is going to be would be worth spending the extra money on, because it's such a great game and everything. But that's about the extent of where I would be willing to spend the extra money. I don't even know if I would pay for upgrades on the previous Xenoblade games, because although I would love to see them that way, I don't have any plans to replay them. I mean, Xenoblade 1 I played entirely through on 3DS and on the new 3DS, and then I played the definitive edition on the Switch entirely through. Xenoblade 2, while that one is probably the most in need of improvements, I don't know that I would replay it. At least not anytime soon. Now, down the line, like if it was 5-6 years from now, and they did a they had that type of improvement available, I might consider it, because it was a miserable experience in handheld mode, at least in terms of visuals. It was awful. It was so bad. It was honestly one of the worst looking games I've seen in handheld mode, and I played it in handheld mode quite a bit just because it's, a good way to play a Xenoblade game. Like, honestly, I feel like it was in some ways worse than playing Xenoblade Chronicles on the 3DS. Because the 3DS, at least, the poor visuals were made up for with the 3D effect, and, the fact that it was so portable. But Xenoblade Chronicles 2, as solid of a game as it was overall, it just looked bad on the Switch. Well, I should say, it looked bad in handheld mode. Docked, it looked just fine. But handheld, it looked really bad. And then, thankfully, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, they had added some type of upscaler in by that point to where it looked a lot better in handheld mode, and it didn't look bad. And then, of course, it still looked great docked as well. And it has amazing music and everything. So, yeah. Anyway, getting off of that tangent, I don't think I have any other predictions for the Direct this week, assuming it actually happens. Which, like I said, if Nate the Hate is saying that it's going to happen, I trust him. He hasn't been wrong about that so far. So yeah.
One thing that popped to my mind, because you mentioned Diablo and you mentioned Indiana Jones, and so I thought about it. I was like, I could possibly see this happening, and that is Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered. I think that even though it's not something that has been sort of teased or announced like Indiana Jones, I think there is a possibility it could happen. It's possibly something that would come later down the road, but something that we probably could see. Maybe next year, possibly, at the latest, I would say.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I mean, that one I think would probably be 30 frames, though, unfortunately, just because of the fact that it's a UE5 game. Because, like, if they could get... Even if they could have a 40 frames per second mode on that, I would actually be really tempted to buy it on Switch 2. Because, yeah, I can run it well enough on my desktop. And decently on my laptop, well enough that it's playable. But, like, the Steam Deck, it's just not a good experience at all. And... yeah, I mean, I wouldn't buy it to play 30 frames per second. I don't think that's really worth it. Because at that point, it's like, well, I could just do it on the Steam Deck. It's going to look ugly, but I could pretty much get 30 frames if that's what I really wanted to do, and then I wouldn't have to buy it again. But yeah, that could definitely happen. Something else that came to mind that I think is maybe not this time, but I think is more than a reasonable possibility that it will happen at some point is Gears of War Reloaded. Because they got that running really well on the Steam Deck, so there's no reason why it couldn't run well on the Switch too, if they wanted to bring it over. And I'm sure they will, because I mean it's on PC, it's on Xbox obviously, and it's on PlayStation as well. So there's not really any reason why they wouldn't bring it over to the Switch too, especially because, like I said, if it can run 60 frames per second on the Steam Deck, it can run 60 on the Switch too without a problem.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point, and I think possibly because of the performance improvements, it probably would be more probable than Elder Scrolls. I would think.
Yeah, I think that at least in terms of performance, it definitely would run way better than Elder Scrolls. But I mean, we'll see what they can do, because there's a lot of things they can do, a lot of potential things. I think that the Switch 2 has a lot of potential. It's not the best device. I still think the screen is not very good, even though it does have the high refresh rate and everything. It just has flaws. There's flaws with the hardware, and there are things I love about it and things I hate about it. But I do think that for games like that, it could be a good showcase. I just hope that something like that they could get optimized better than like Assassin's Creed Shadows, for example, because everything I've seen about that one, it looks pretty bad. It only runs at 720p docked and 30 frames per second. And it doesn't look very good. I mean, I think obviously it looks better docked than it does in handheld, but it's still not great. And I mean, granted, the Assassin's Creed games aren't necessarily the best optimized anyway, but that's not even a UE5 game, so that's the one thing that makes me like, I don't know. Although I guess I hadn't thought about the fact that Wilds is a UE5. Or no, it isn't UE5, never mind. It's RE Engine. It's RE Engine. So yeah, I still think Wilds can do it. I mean, it's probably going to be 30, but I think they can make it work. So yeah. All right. Any last minute predictions before we move on to the next topic?
No, sir.
All right. So the next topic that we have tonight is regarding, as we mentioned before, Monster Hunter Wilds, which got a PC patch very recently that has supposedly drastically improved the performance, and there's supposed to be an even further one on February 18th. So, to read a story from VGC, earlier this month, a Reddit user posted a lengthy message on the Monster Hunter subreddit, suggesting that the game performs better on PC when all DLC is installed. After performing some tests, they theorized that the game is constantly checking for the presence of DLC, and therefore the more DLC a player has installed, the better the game runs. Those findings were passed on to Capcom, and Capcom has published a patch which they said will fix the issue. Though they say that it didn't quite affect the entire game as initially suggested. So, according to Capcom's patch notes, the issue only really occurs around the support desk area in the base camp or Grand Hub, and only when the player has unclaimed content. They said it's unrelated to how much DLC is installed. So they have put out a patch that's supposed to make a significant difference, especially in the FPS drops, which I can say from the little bit that I played, being in the base camp, because I still just like super early in the game, the frame rate was much worse there than it was out in the open world. But they said that it's only something that happens in the base camp when you have unclaimed content, and the number of DLCs you own does not affect it but it might also depend on the performance of your CPU. Some other thing, just some more specifics about what types of changes they made to improve performance. They improved the sorry, let me back up a little bit. They improved CPU and GPU usage, or CPU and GPU processing specific to the Steam version, reducing shader warming processes performed outside the shader compilation screen to lower CPU load, adjusted texture streaming to improve visual quality while reducing VRAM usage, adjusted the high-resolution texture pack to reduce VRAM usage and overall package size, which can definitely be helpful, especially for those playing at 1440 and 4K. They added an additional tab to the options menu for the CPU, allowing players to adjust settings related to the CPU load. Added new categories to the graphics settings, along with new settings for existing options. Adjusted graphic presets and added a confirmation window to automatically update your settings on first launch after updating. Expanded the volumetric fog setting in the graphics option from 2 levels to just 2 levels to 5. So the previous high setting has been renamed to highest and low to high, and then 3 new lower options: medium, low, and lowest. And then they said that they fixed an issue where the system load could increase around the support desk at base camp or the Grand Hub due to unclaimed content. And some other miscellaneous fixes, but all that being said, I will already say I have not had a chance to test this out yet. I do hope to actually do that in the not too distant future, just for the sake of being able to give my 2 cents on how it has impacted performance. But what are your thoughts?
I think this is definitely great. Now, whether or not, Capcom says it's unrelated one or another, if this is what fixes the whole issue with performance, then that's definitely great. I think that something like this should have been caught sooner, especially considering how the game is. I mean, the game upon release was running less than desirably. So I mean, I think especially considering the fact that the game cost $70, there should have been some more quality control put into this game. Whether or not, RE Engine is poorly suited for open world games, I still think if you're spending $70 for something like this, you better be getting a quality product. For what it is. So hopefully this improves a lot to the game. We'll definitely have to wait and see. Of course, you said you will at some point go back and test this, but we'll definitely see, what PC gamers are experiencing. Hopefully this is going to be one of the things that helps bring people back in. Whether or not that is the case, I don't know. Outside of performance issues, I've heard mixed things about the game compared with Worlds and Rise. Some people said that there definitely wasn't enough content in the base game compared with the other games. Some people were like, yeah, it's fun, but it's just not long enough. So we'll see if this by itself is enough to entice people to come back. I mean, to my knowledge, has there been like an expansion yet for this game yet? I mean, I know they've added like the free content here and there, but like they haven't done anything with like Sunbreak for Rise or
right.
Iceborne.
Yeah, they just added some additional monsters, but it's nothing significant like Sunbreak or Iceborne.
Okay. Yeah, so I think maybe at some point they're gonna have to do that to help bring people back to the game. Otherwise, this probably would just be a Monster Hunter game that people just end up not necessarily forgetting, but they probably might just say, we'll just go back to the other games because those had more or better replay value and whatnot. But we'll definitely have to wait and see. I hope this is a good enough fix for people, and that, you know, people, especially for people who have started playing the game but stopped because the performance was just unbearable. I hope this helps them in that regard, but we'll definitely have to just wait and see once the patch comes out. And also, I'm hoping that whatever they do here could possibly, while I don't think it's been, the optimization has been as poorly, I have heard that on consoles it hasn't been the best of experience there either, so I'm hoping that whatever they're doing here could possibly be passed on to the console versions as well, even if, you know, the same type of problems aren't to the same degree.
Right. Yeah, so one thing to clarify is that most of this has already come through in a patch from January 28th. February 18th is going to have a further update, which will further improve stability and performance across all platforms. So I think this was specifically PC updates to improve the performance on PC, and it sounds like they've done a lot of things that really should have just been there from the beginning, but at least, you know, better late than never. I would love to really get into this game. I think the hardest thing for me is, number one, because of the fact that while, like, I got super into Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate on 3DS, I never fully finished it, like, to my satisfaction, because I got through all of the low rank and the high rank quests. I got to the Mark of a Hero quest, which is technically the first G rank quest that you get. And keep in mind, this was all solo. I didn't do the multiplayer stuff. I just did this solo stuff. So it's a little bit easier than it would be doing the multiplayer, because enemies don't have as much health since you don't have as many people attacking and everything. But I never was able to complete that quest. And so, although I played like probably 30-40 hours on Monster Hunter 4 when that came out, despite not having finished 3, I fell off because, once again, I just kind of felt bad because I never fully finished 3. And then I ended up eventually buying Generations Ultimate on the Switch, but that was like just kind of buying something during a time of grief where it was like, what's the term that people use? I don't know. I can't think of what the term is, but basically it was retail therapy. That was what I was looking for. So yeah, I didn't play very much of that. And then I bought Rise, and I played a decent chunk of that on the Switch. But, I mean, it still was probably like 30-40 hours, and then I stopped playing. And then eventually I got it on Steam and played a decent chunk, but once again, like maybe 20 hours. Probably actually not even that much now that I think about it. And I bought World. I haven't touched it at all, because I mean, I got for like $10. And then I got Wilds when someone gave it away as a digital code. And so I have only briefly touched it. And what I played, I liked, other than the fact that it was performing pretty poorly, at least initially. And when I upgraded my PC, it performs better. But all that being said, I'm interested in checking this out. I would love to actually be able to get like really into it, because I do enjoy Monster Hunter's gameplay loop in general. And the quality of life improvements, even just Rise had huge quality of life improvements over the previous games. And then the bit I played of Wilds, it's like some even further quality of life improvements over Rise. It's just I haven't really been able to get fully into it, because I have 3 hanging over my head constantly. and then I forgot I also bought, I think it was Generations on the 3DS when the eShop was closing, because it was $3. So it's like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll spend $3 on this game. But yeah, I'm just glad that they're finally fixing the PC version, and I do kind of want to give it a fair go. But yeah, All right, any other thoughts on that topic?
No, sir.
You want to talk about the Nintendo Switch Online updates here?
Sure thing. So, Walmart might have spilled the beans again. This time though, this was not the Canadian Walmart site that that leaked something, but looks like this was the American one. So, according to social media users, and this was reported on VGC, it looked like there were some Nintendo Switch Online games that were shown there. Two of them, though, weren't announced. And these are two GameCube games, which are Metroid Prime 2 and Pikmin 2, that were part of the list. It's known that this could be an error on Walmart's end, but it's possible that this is just something that was shown that shouldn't have been presented. And yeah, I mean, so far, as far as like the Switch 2 online goes, there are 8 GameCube games that are available, and Nintendo, of course, is porting more games slowly over the course of time. And I think it's the article says that 3 games have been confirmed to be coming in the future, which are Super Mario Sunshine, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, and Pokemon Colosseum, but those don't have release dates yet. Now, this has brought up the question on whether, and this was a rumor before, on whether Metroid Prime 2 would be getting a remaster, I guess technically / remake, depending on how you view it, similar to Metroid Prime 1, but nothing has, of course, come out as of yet. And also in VGC also announced that in a recently published book, Metroid Prime series producer Kensuke Tanabe said he'd like more players to be able to experience the Metroid Prime 2's multiplayer mode. And yeah, that is essentially the main gist of things. So, I have my own thoughts on this, but what are your thoughts on this potential leak?
So, the idea that they're not doing the Metroid Prime 2 remaster, of course, we don't know. Nintendo's gonna Nintendo. That may or may not be a legit thing. Pikmin 2 coming to NSO, I mean, makes sense. I would say Prime 2 coming to NSO makes sense. I think that this is legit. But whether or not this would mean there's no Prime 2 remaster coming, well, I have this to present to you. Pikmin 1 and 2 on the Switch. Physical copy even. If they are willing to put Pikmin 2 already on the Switch, available for purchase, does that mean that they won't put Pikmin 2 on Nintendo Switch Online GameCube? Well, based on this leaked listing from Walmart, I'm going to say it's very likely that it is in fact coming. So if they already have that, I think because of the fact that they already have Pikmin 2 on the Switch, completely separate, I think that there is a more than reasonable chance that we could still see Metroid Prime 2 get a native version for the Switch 2. Whether that's an actual remaster or a remake. Honestly, I think Nintendo milks their customers. They do. And I guess what I'm getting at is that I think that I believe this is real. I believe that this ad is real, that this is something that Walmart got ahead of time basically as promotion for Nintendo Switch Online, because they try to sell those membership, the cards that you can buy, for a subscription and everything, and that they probably just had that image already made up because they were told ahead of time they weren't supposed to put that out. But Metroid Prime 2 is going to come, Pikmin 2 is going to come, there's going to be on Switch Online, but that doesn't nullify the possibility we could still see a Metroid Prime 2 remaster or port later on. And I also believe this even more so because of the fact that Metroid Prime 3, since unless they decide to introduce Wii Virtual Console or Wii games through Nintendo Switch Online, there is a more than reasonable possibility that they would want to put Prime 3 on the Switch, which means that they wouldn't, I mean, they would have to put Prime 2 as well. At least in my opinion. Now, I could be totally wrong about that because, of course, we have Luigi's Mansion 2 and 3 on the Switch, with 2 being a up-res port from the 3DS, and 3 obviously being a native Switch game. But, of course, in that situation, even with Luigi's Mansion 1 being in Nintendo Switch Online, that's the first game, whereas you have 2 and 3. So you have that different sequence, but I also could see them very easily being like, okay, here's the GameCube version on Switch Online, and then they'll release the first Luigi's Mansion game as its own, as an up-resed HD port from the 3DS version. And I don't know if that was probably about as clear as mud, everything I said, because I was kind of all over the place. But the TLDL, the ad, I believe, is 100% real, and I do not believe that this means Prime 2 and 3 will not get remasters on Switch. That's it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the ad is 100% real. I think, like you said, Walmart just wasn't supposed to show this information yet, but they got ahead of themselves and did that. Now, I also agree that just because the game is coming, or just because those games are coming to, Nintendo Switch Online, doesn't mean that we couldn't get a remaster sometime down the road. And I mean, even before Pikmin 1 and 2, if you think about it, I mean, granted, this sort of happened in reverse, but Nintendo has, which I saw in the article, Nintendo has confirmed that Super Mario Sunshine is coming to Nintendo Switch Online. However, if you go back to, I think, 2019, Nintendo released Super Mario Sunshine as part of the 3D All-Stars collection. So,
yeah, but you can't get that anymore.
Yeah, you can't.
So
that is the thing. You can't get that anymore. For whatever crazy reason, they decided not to do that. But they did have the game at one point. So I think that it is possible we could get Prime 2 remastered. And something that I thought about now is maybe because Prime 4 is out. I mean, I don't know how they were going to handle things, but maybe because I know at some point Retro Studios took over working on the development of Prime 4. So maybe because of that could have put a delay in plans with maybe working on Prime 2 Remastered. So now that Prime 2 Remastered Prime 4 is already out, that could be something that they're going back to possibly and just like working on that. And then maybe by the end of this year, I would say we could have at least an announcement, if not an actual window of when Prime 2 Remastered would come out. But I definitely agree that just because the game is showing up in NSO doesn't mean it couldn't come down the road. I think that would make sense, but it definitely would be something of a more wait and see situation. Now, unfortunately, Nintendo waited too long to announce Prime 2 Remastered, because if they had gone ahead and said, hey, here's Prime 2 Remastered, my Switch would still be with me right now. But I do think it could come over, and I would be interested in seeing what they would do, especially since I completely forgot about the multiplayer until it was mentioned in this article, because I mean, unfortunately, I never had the chance to properly play it with anyone. I mean, I would go in Prime 2 on the GameCube and just like see what the different modes were like, and just see what the different maps were. I mean, I think it could have been fun playing with other people, but it's just not something that I was able to experience. So if this gets people to be able to play it again, I think that would be great. Unfortunately, the big thing would be, because it's multiplayer, you would most likely need to be paying for NSO to do it, unless they found a way for you to do it, locally, which I think, which definitely should be feasible. Like, there's no reason why it shouldn't be able to be done locally, even if it's actually, yeah, you should definitely be able to still do split screen co-op on that, definitely. So I think that would be a great way to experience. I mean, I don't think that the multiplayer was going to be, a big game changer, but it would be something that would be unique for a series that has been primarily single player. And I think it definitely would be much more enjoyable than whatever Federation Force was supposed to be. So yeah, I think doing that would be great. But overall, though, I think just to sum things up, Walmart spilled the beans. Prime 2 Remastered definitely could be coming, and we could hear something later this year, especially now that Prime 4 has been released. But yeah, that's everything that I think about that.
Yeah, I don't know that I really have any further thoughts on that. Yeah, I guess we'll just wait and see. I guess the one last thing I'll add is that I think very likely, even if Prime 2 Remastered does happen, it won't be happening at the same time as Prime is announced for NSO. I think NSO, or the GameCube version, is going to be announced for NSO probably the next main Nintendo Direct, and then the Prime 2 Remaster won't be announced until probably the Fall Direct. If it gets announced that soon, and we'll have to wait and see on that.
That makes sense.
All right. Anything else before we get into our recommendations and dissuasions?
No, sir.
All right. Well, why don't you start us off?
All right. So several different recommendations from me. The first one is going to be, if you are building a new PC or if you are upgrading your RAM, make sure that you check the clock speeds in the BIOS settings before you get started, just to make sure that XMP is enabled, or whatever I think the AMD equivalent is. When I was tinkering around and with the RAM that I had just installed in a build recently, even though the settings were set to auto by default, for whatever crazy reason, the clock speeds were set to 2133 megahertz, and these are 3200 megahertz sticks of RAM. So it's definitely much lower than it should have been. And even though the CPU only gets up to 2666, there's no reason why it should have been that low out of the box. So definitely go ahead and check the settings just to make sure that your clock speeds aren't too low and that you're taking advantage of everything you can with your hardware. Next set of recommendations has to do with GOG. The first one is going to be, if you enjoy old school horror games, especially with the classic Resident Evil games, GOG is giving away the original Alone in the Dark trilogy games for free, so you can go into GOG and just add those games to your account right off the bats there. So that's available. Additionally, Square has started to put the Final Fantasy games on GOG. So it's 3 Remake, 4 Remake, and 8 and 9, I believe. So those games are available.
So 8 remastered.
8 remastered. I'm sorry, 8 remastered and 9. So you can definitely go and get them. They're on sale right now. So if you want to get those games and have them DRM free, go right ahead. And that would also sort of send a message to Square saying, hey, people are willing to buy your games DRM free, and we will support that practice. So definitely do that. And who knows, eventually, maybe down the line, we could get something like 7 Remake on GOG, completely DRM free. So that's definitely something to consider if you want to do that. And the last thing I have to say is also related to Square. They are delisting the current version, the 2013 version of Final Fantasy VII on Steam. That's because they're going to be replacing it with the more recent recent version that's on consoles right now, and it has like better controller support and fixes a few other things apparently. But the key thing is that if you have the game right now, you will automatically get the newer version for free as a separate version. However, save files do not transfer over, so you can't, just continue from where you left off at. But I do know that for some people who have mods or play modded versions of the game, the new version will not support the mods that are out. So if you want to use those mods, it would be best to get the current version now before it's delisted from Steam. So I definitely recommend buying that now. And like I said, you'll also get the newer version for free when that comes out, which is sometime this month, I believe. But yeah, those are all my recommendations.
Good stuff. I keep hoping that someone's going to figure out how to properly mod in a good frame rate for especially Final Fantasy VIII Remastered and Final Fantasy IV 3D, because...
Yes.
Yeah.
15 frames is... oof.
Yeah, very much so. All right. My recommendations. First of all, if you want to check out that Mario 64 PC version of the game, look up Harbor Masters Ghost Ship, and that's Harbor with a U, so Harbour Masters Ghost Ship. That's the name of the launcher that you need in order to be able to decompile and recompile Mario 64 to work on PC and run natively rather than emulated. So it's well worth it. You just have to have a ROM of the game, but if you already own the game, then piece of cake to get the ROM and all that good stuff. Then I'm also going to recommend using Apollo and Moonlight for streaming games from your PC to your Steam Deck or phone. It's a very solid experience. Obviously, if you don't have any sort of controller or controller attachment to use on your phone, you're probably not going to have the best experience in terms of playing it, but if you have any of those things, it's going to be really solid. So it's well worth doing. I don't know how well it works outside the home, but I know that there's potentially something else that works a little better along with one or both of those to make it work well outside the home. So I will probably look into that in the near future and try testing that out, but in the meantime, Apollo and Moonlight. And there are lots of videos that you can find talking about how to do that. It's very easy setup, well worth it. Last recommendation is, if you game on PC, grab some of those mystery game bundles from Fanatical, because you can spend $17 and get 25 games, and basically you're spending about 68 cents, under 68 cents per game. And you may get a bunch of duds, but you may get some good ones in there. And considering the fact that you're getting 25 games, you may find some hidden gems. I did one of those recently, and I ended up getting like 4 of the games that had been on my wish list for a while. I mean, they're smaller games, but they're just like, oh, I'd been wanting this game. Like there's that's how I got both Teslagrad games, which are like Metroidvanias that I had been interested in. I had on my Switch wish list for a while, but never bought on there. And then I got a game called Buzzed, which we had talked about previously. It was shown on one of the indie directs a year or two ago. And I think there's a couple other ones, but it's like I've been getting some Metroidvanias and a couple of Souls-likes and stuff like that. It's like, hey, I mean, I spent 68 cents for each one of these games, so it's like, I mean, you don't lose much. Like, most of the time, you're spending $17 on a single game, if not more than that. This, you get 25 games, And yeah, it's mostly going to be probably like indie games. In fact, I think usually it's almost always indie games, either that indie or older games. But considering how cheap they are, you're really not missing out much. And especially if you don't have much of any games, this is a great way to build up a library of just various things. You can try out some new stuff, and you're not losing it. I mean, if you find that every game in that bundle is a dud, then maybe it won't feel worth it. But I've gotten some solid stuff in there, and I mean, it was worth the $17 for that. I think this last bundle, I probably got like 9 or 10 of those games that I was interested in, at least, maybe more. I know that there's a few in there that I'm like, probably not, but for that price, I mean, it's like you don't really lose much. So that's what I have for recommendations.
Yeah, definitely good stuff there, and that reminds me I need to go and check the mystery boxes and possibly get something.
That reminds me also, I should mention with that, these mystery game bundles also give you an opportunity, put you in for a potential to win a Steam Deck OLED. So it's like, yeah, you're probably not going to win, but it's not impossible. And if you got a Steam Deck OLED and 25 games, and you didn't have any other PC games, it's like, hey, you got some games you can check out. You could probably most of these are going to be small enough to where you can install all of them and try out each one and see what if any of them click with you. So yeah. All right, dissuasions.
So my dissuasion is going to be sort of related to my one of my recommendations, and that is, if frame rates really are a problem for you, don't play Final Fantasy IV Remake, which is a shame because I really enjoyed it back on the original DS, and it was great. But going back to it years later when I was playing it on PC, it was just painful watching those animations. And unfortunately, there is no mod, there is no patch to get it to run at a higher frame rate than the locked 15 that it's at. So you'd be much better off just going and playing the Pixel remaster instead, which is a bit of a shame because I did like a lot of the stuff that was done in the 3D remake, but it's just not an enjoyable experience. So because of that, I would say maybe get one of the other games. I don't know if 3 probably runs the same way just because that was also on the DS.
Probably.
So you'd probably be better off. I mean, you said that 8 had issues, so maybe just get 9 and 1 GOG, and call it a day. But yeah, that at least is my one dissuasion.
Yeah, 9 has some really good mods too that you can do, like having widescreen support and of course updating character models and all that. It's like I've seen there are some really good mods for 9. 8 is pretty limited on the kind of mods you get. I mean, I still really like 8, but as far as modernization goes, it isn't modernized. I think 7 and 9 are probably the ones that are easiest to mod properly. Like 7 has some really good mods, and 9 has some really good mods. 8 is pretty lackluster on that front, so it's kind of more like if you want to check out the game, it's a game worth checking out. I really enjoy it, but half of it is nostalgia too. So, all right, my dissuasion. If you ever have tried to make homemade mayonnaise, and particularly if you find at a certain point that it starts to separate, if you're trying to fix it, because you can fix it once it starts to separate, usually you just add a little bit of water, but don't add more than 1 tablespoon of water at a time, because if you add too much, it's just going to end up soup, and it's going to be completely worthless. It's not going to be salvageable. I had some mayo that I had made, and it was separating, and I made the mistake of adding too much water, and it was just completely worthless. I ended up having to just toss it. because it wasn't salvageable at all, which was disappointing. But it is what it is. I don't use mayo a lot. Like, I'll either be using it a ton over a short period of time for, you know, sandwiches and various other things, or I'll use it like a bunch the first day for sandwiches or whatever, and then after that I basically won't touch it for weeks, and then it'll separate, and just, so yeah, that's all I got. All right, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. No new videos as of yet, but as I said earlier, I am working on the one video. All my footage has been recorded now, so I just need to edit everything together. So I'm going to aim to have this out. Maybe not Friday, but Saturday is probably the most realistic thing for me to say on that end, so you can expect to see it coming out this week. And then after that, there is one smaller video that I'll probably put out sometime next week, I'd probably say, just depending on how I feel after getting all that together. But we'll see. And then I have my other channel, Justin's Bible Blog. That's at Justin's Bible Blog. No new content there either, but I do have something or several things that I have plans working on, and I think I've come to a conclusion about how I want to have my videos set up now. So I'm gonna get back to recording somewhat soon. It'll probably be after I finish, or just after I finish editing the video on my other channel, but we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that is everything I have plans right now.
All right, good stuff. Well, you can find me on my YouTube channel at The Frozen Gamer 87. That's my gaming channel. I don't have any new content there. Haven't put anything out in a while, but I do have things in the works. It's just a matter of when, because it's mostly I know what I want to do. I just have to record it and then edit, and the recording is the part that's taking me the longest to get to. So but there is a 1+ hour, I think it's like an hour and a half long video about why I love PC gaming, which separately is also broken into a playlist that just has individual segments in case you don't want to sit there and listen to that long of a video. But otherwise, there is the YouTube channel and Rumble channel for the podcast, the video version, which goes live every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, barring any technical issues. And that is... Did I miss something? I feel like I'm forgetting something about the video version, but yeah, it's so. Oh yes, the YouTube channel, it's at the Orange Box Podcast. Rumble, it's not a custom URL, but you can find the podcast on Rumble as well. Then we have the audio-only version of the podcast, which goes live every Friday at 12 a.m. Central Time, barring any technical issues. And that is on all major audio podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and others. And that's everything as far as that goes. If you want to contact us, you can send an email to the orangeboxpodcast@gmail.com, or you can comment on one of the video versions of the podcast, and we will either read your comment on the show or just respond to you depending on what it is. If it's a question, most likely it will end up being something we would read on the show. But whether you write to us or not, whether you have something positive to say or not, we're still going to talk 2.5 hours plus every week, because this is how we catch up. This is how we this is our outlet, or at least it's my outlet for talking about video games every week, and so it's just a good time. And we've been doing this now for 2.5 years, something like that. Anyway, it's been over 2 years. It's like 2 years and 3 months or 2 months or something like that. The point is, though, it's something that we're going to keep doing, at least for the time being, God willing, and, as long as we can. So, I think that's everything. So, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, well, it's Groundhog Day again. Orange Box Podcast out.